In this video, I'll show you how to solder on a water fitting onto the end of a copper pipe. Before you start, it's a good idea to remove all the corrosion off of the pipe. You can start with some coarser sandpaper and then near the end, some finer sandpaper to get those deep scratches out. Now we'll shut off the water to the house. We're gonna drain out some of the water close to where we're working because the pipes are on the other side of this wall connected to the sink. There's a range of different sizes of pipe cutters, going from pretty big to pretty small. These smaller ones would work, but there's really not quite enough leverage to go through and cut that pipe, although it would work. We're able to fit this medium-sized one in there, although we aren't able to fit the large one because the handle's just too big and it would hit the other pipe. We'll cut it about right here on the pipe. Usually there'd be a handle on the pipe cutter, but this one has a nick in the blade right here, and this one is missing the handle. In this case, I'll just use a pair of pliers to tighten it up. And it's just about ready to pop off here, and you can still expect there to be a little bit of pressure in the water line. Now I've got a bucket in there to catch some of it. I'll let some of that pressure hiss out before I continue going. Now that the pressure's down, we're gonna go ahead and cut it the rest of the way. And there it is. There's two different kinds of thicknesses you'll find in the copper pipe, and this is the thicker kind. It's always a good idea to deburr the inside of the tube, so that way you don't get turbulence in the water and everything can run free. We'll clean up the end of that pipe. With a little bit of aluminum foil, we'll protect the wall from the flame. We're gonna go ahead and flux the fittings, but this old bottle of flux that we have, the bottle is really good. The stuff that's in here, I'm not sure if they make it anymore, but like if you ever see it at a garage sale, I would highly recommend it. Go ahead and flux the pipe. You see that water dripping right there? We're gonna have to evaporate that with the heat before we start soldering everything together. And we'll put some flux on the inside of the fitting as well. Put the fittings together. What we're gonna do, the general idea, is start heating up this fitting, and once we see that it's starting to get a little warm, what we're gonna do is we're gonna rest that solder on there. And we're just gonna move the torch around, get even heat, until we see that solder just start to melt into the part, and you wanna see it flow all the way around the ring and drip a little bit at the bottom. Now the reason you wanna have that solder resting at the top here is so you know what temperature the solder is melting at? If you go too high, you go above that temperature too much, you can actually burn the flux out. It's important that all the water is out of there or else this is never gonna get up to temperature. Heat the fitting, not the pipe, because that's the heavy part, and the heat will transfer to the pipe. The water's out of it now at this point, so I'm gonna set that solder on. The pipe is actually at a little bit of an angle up, so what we need to do is bend that down a little bit so the water can drain out. With the water that's in here, it's just gonna keep the pipe cool and then it'll never get up to temperature. And it's cooled off, we're gonna go ahead and clean it up and scrub it with a wire brush. You wanna check to make sure that there's solder all the way around. That silver should be like a bead all the way around. Whenever we put on the fitting, we need to wrap the Teflon tape to seal it. And what you wanna do is you wanna have the end of the Teflon tape wherever it sits, you want that to be in the direction of the thread. So when this thread's over, you want it to push that down and not pull it up. The direction that you end up putting the tape on is almost always opposite of what you think. The tape is on in the right direction, so whenever this thread's on, it's not gonna ball up. I've got this tightened on with the Teflon tape in the direction that I want, so let's go ahead and turn on the water and test it. The water's on, and there's no leaks in the line. And we've got water.